Okay, so on your physical exam, did you have questions? I know a lot of y'all emailed me and had questions on physical exam. So we're going to go over that together real quick. Okay, so here is the sample of a sheet, right, for a physical exam. So I gave you all those extra things. You had the chapter, the part in your book that explained it, and you had the extra link at theveterinarypartner.com that explained it. So you had to do some research to be able to do it well. Okay, you had to do some research. So this is kind of a sample sheet, and it's a physical exam. And up at the top left corner, you see there's a temperature. And a lot of you who visited veterinary clinics know that you've taken temperatures, right? You've taken temperatures. On a physical exam, on yours you didn't have to because some of them are not all cooperative. But normally when you go to a veterinary hospital, it's very, very common. It's very important to take a physical exam. I mean, to take a temperature on your physical exam because, let me give you an example. I went to look at some cows a couple of 2 weeks ago maybe. I went to look at some cows, and they had one baby that was sick. Okay, so they had one calf that was sick, and it was very sick. And so they said, well, we just got up the whole bunch, the whole herd, to make sure nobody else was going to get sick because this was a baby, and they had just lost one a couple weeks ago. So I want to make sure they didn't have something contagious in the herd. And when I got there, yes, Avalon, exactly. So when I got there, we cut out the mama cows. We looked at the mama cows and cut them out. We looked at all the babies, and there was probably 30 or 40 babies. So we ran them through the chute. They all looked fine. But when I took their temperature, does anybody know what a normal temp for a cow is? It's kind of the same for a dog, cat, cow, horse. They're all around the same, which is different from us. Okay, so 100 to 101. Cows can actually run to 102 before I really get concerned, 102 and a half if it's hot outside. Okay, so usually most things, if you just remember around 100, most animals run around 100. Okay, and that's totally normal for them. 101.5 is normal. So, you know, when we have a 101, that's a temperature, but for animals, that's still very normal, 101. So when I ran these cows through the chute, they looked fine, they looked healthy, they looked normal. They all had 105 temperature, almost every single one of them. I think the lowest one I took was 103.5. So if without that temperature, I would not have known that those calves were sick. Okay, because they looked fine. But the problem is they had a viral infection, so they really weren't sick yet. They had all been exposed and their bodies were fighting disease, but they hadn't shown up yet as far as physical. Like they weren't having runny nose, runny eyes, cough. They weren't doing that yet, but it was coming. So we went ahead and treated them all because we knew it was coming. And they're cows, and you can't just pick them up one by one when they get sick. So we had to go ahead and treat the entire herd for respiratory infection so that the rest of them didn't die, like the little one that did. Okay, so temperature is super important for these guys. So on physical exam, temperature, how did they pick it up? That's a good question, Rachel. They had actually brought some new heifers into the herd, but it had been a month ago. And so it was some latent virus that they had gotten. And I don't know why it didn't show up sooner. They had brought new heifers into the herd, I think almost 5 or 6 weeks before. And it had just now gotten the other one sick. And I don't know why. I don't know why it waited so long. Usually 2 to 3 weeks and you're safe, but not this time. Okay, so temperature is important. Pulse is important. You don't have to have a stethoscope to take a pulse. Okay, you can hold your finger on the heart and feel the heartbeat. You can hold your finger on an artery anywhere you can feel a pulse and get a pulse. Underneath the back legs is a good place. That femoral artery that runs right there is a good place. And then respiratory is just respirations per minute. So you just watch them breathe. How many breaths did they take in a minute? And you have to be careful because it's not an in and an out. Okay, so an in and an out is one. So only count breaths in, or you only count breaths out. You can't count both, or you'll think your dog is dying because it has a double respiration. So you have to watch for ins or outs when you do that. Okay, and then it has a little thing that says attitude at time of exam. So this is very important. It's very important because, again, we've talked about behavior and how to see if the animal is feeling well or not. We need to be clued into their normal behavior. Okay, so vicious is important. Why is vicious important? It's a note on the chart. Why is it super important to yes? So they make will bite stickers for charts. If it's all electronic records, they make pop-ups that will pop up on the chart that says will bite. Okay, there's a lot of those. Yes. And then you want everyone to know, exactly, Miriam, you want everyone to know when they pick up that chart before they go in the room with that animal that this animal needs to be watched very closely. I've had 2 colleagues in the last couple of years who had serious bite wounds from a dog, like surgery bite wounds on their hands because they were doing something to the dog and it bit them. So you have to be very, very careful. Yes. So safety is super important. And sometimes people get upset when you want to muzzle their dog, but it's not worth it. People can be upset. You don't want anyone getting hurt. And in fact, I like to tell people to teach their dog to wear a muzzle because it's fine. If you teach them to wear a muzzle at home, then it's not a big deal when they go to the vet. Because sometimes even though they never gonna bite, they do bite because they're in a strange place. They're with strange people. They're defensive because they want to protect their owners a lot of the times. And that's just their natural reaction is to snip. And if you're in the wrong place, then you can get hurt, even though they're not a vicious dog. I'm totally fine with all of my dogs being muzzled because people are more important because the dog will have to be put to sleep if it bites too many people. So let's just keep everybody safe and put a muzzle on. It's not going to hurt anybody. If they're excitable, if they're alert, if they're depressed, right? Because so if you bring in a dog, if I walk in a room and somebody's brought in a dog for an exam, just, oh, it needs vaccines, and the dog is laying in the corner with its ears droopy, then I'm not probably going to give exams because, I'm not probably going to give vaccines because this dog is not well. Vaccines are for well things, not for sick things. Okay? Nutritional state, we always want to note if they're overweight, if they're normal, if they're underweight. Okay, so what's going on with them if I'm just looking at them? Are they eating well? Are they not eating well? Are they eating well and thin? Then that we know something's going on. State of hydration, that just means are they dehydrated? Are they normal? We look at mucous membranes for that. So their gums will be wet if they're normal. Their gums will be dry if they're dehydrated. And we always look at that. And then we want to weight. We always need to know how much they weigh. Then we get into this systemic exam. Okay? So oropharyngeal, does anybody know what that means? What is oropharyngeal? Throat, good, Emma. Good, Jana, mouth. Okay, so oral, anytime you see oro, O-R-O, or O-R-A-L, or O-R-A-D, oral means mouth. Okay, so that's mouth. Pharyngeal is the throat. Okay, so that's down the throat. So we're looking at the mouth and inside of the throat. Okay, so that's what that means, mouth and throat. So we're going to look at the dogs, cats, horses, mouth and throat. Okay, what are we looking for? So what did Miriam see when they did an oropharyngeal exam on the rabbit? If they would have just looked at the abscess and never looked at the rabbit's oropharyngeal area, they would have missed those teeth that were causing a serious problem. Right? I mean, you could see up in the lip, those teeth had grown up and pushed up a spot in the lip. Right? So that's why those exams are so important. We need to look at the teeth. Make sure there's not abscess teeth. There's not overgrown teeth in an animal that's going to overgrow teeth. There's no lumps or bumps or bruises or scratches or any of those things, right? And then you've got eyes. So does anybody know the technical term for eyes?